Hello, welcome to Imperial Truth, your source for honest and clear reporting. Here is the news for March 20, 2025.
The Hungarian government has introduced legislation to prohibit LGBTQ+ individuals from organizing public gatherings and marches. Officials argue that this measure is necessary to protect traditional family values and societal norms. Critics, however, view this as a direct attack on freedom of assembly and expression, potentially isolating Hungary from the broader European community. Human rights organizations have condemned the proposed law, stating it violates fundamental rights enshrined in international treaties. The European Union has expressed concern, indicating that such actions could lead to sanctions or other punitive measures. This development adds to a series of controversial policies that have strained Hungary's relationship with Western allies.
President Trump has signed an executive order directing the Secretary of Education to initiate the dismantling of the Department of Education. This move aligns with his long-standing campaign promise to reduce federal oversight in education. The administration has already implemented significant staff reductions within the department. The executive order has sparked legal challenges from Democratic state attorneys general and criticism from civil rights organizations. The dissolution of the department raises concerns about the future of federal education funding and programs. Congressional approval is required to fully abolish the department, setting the stage for a contentious political battle.
The Federal Reserve has decided to maintain its benchmark interest rate at the current range of 4.25% to 4.50%. This decision reflects a cautious approach amid uncertainties surrounding recent import tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. Policymakers have projected 2/4 percentage point rate cuts by the end of the year, but remain vigilant given the unpredictable economic outlook. Chair Jerome Powell emphasized that while unemployment remains low, the economy faces challenges due to policy shifts and trade tensions. The Fed's projections indicate a slowdown in economic growth to 1.7% for the year, with inflation expected to rise to 2.7%. Financial markets responded with gains in major U.S. stock indices, while the dollar and Treasury yields saw slight declines.
The Trump administration is actively exploring legal strategies to avoid providing deportation records requested by federal judges. Officials argue that releasing detailed deportation data could compromise national security and interfere with ongoing enforcement operations. Critics claim this lack of transparency undermines judicial oversight and raises concerns about potential human rights violations. Legal experts suggest that the administration's refusal could lead to prolonged court battles and possible contempt charges. Immigration advocates warn that withholding information may set a precedent for limiting government accountability in other areas. Despite mounting pressure, the administration has signaled that it will continue resisting disclosure requirements through appeals and executive authority.
Reports indicate that the Trump administration has terminated and rehired approximately 25,000 federal employees. Many of those fired were career civil servants, dismissed as part of efforts to reshape the federal workforce with politically aligned personnel. However, a significant portion of these employees were later reinstated, often after legal challenges or agency restructurings. Critics argue that this cycle of firing and rehiring has created instability and inefficiency in government operations. Supporters claim that the practice ensures agencies are staffed with individuals committed to Trump's policy agenda.
Turkish President Erdogan has ordered the arrest of the mayor of Istanbul and a leading opposition figure, on charges related to terrorism and corruption. This move comes shortly before Imamoglu was expected to announce his candidacy for the presidency. The arrest has plunged Turkey into a political crisis, raising concerns about the country's commitment to democratic processes. The Turkish lira has experienced a significant decline, and stock markets have tumbled in response to the political turmoil. Thousands have taken to the streets in protest, viewing the arrest as an attempt by Erdogan to eliminate political competition. International observers fear that this development could further strain Turkey's relations with Western allies and hinder its aspirations for European Union membership.
As egg prices soar due to supply chain disruptions and inflation, a surprising trend has emerged at the border. Smuggled eggs are now more commonly seized at the U.S.-Mexico border than fentanyl. The sharp rise in egg prices, which have more than doubled in some regions, has driven desperate consumers to seek cheaper alternatives, even if it means resorting to illegal imports. Experts suggest that the increased smuggling of food items signals a broader societal crisis, where survival concerns outweigh the risks of drug trafficking. While fentanyl remains a major threat, the prominence of food smuggling highlights the deep financial strain on working-class Americans. The situation has prompted calls for government action to address inflation and food insecurity before the problem worsens.
French scientist Dr. Laurent Moreau was denied entry into the United States after border officials reviewed his phone and discovered past social media posts criticizing former President Donald Trump. Moreau, a climate researcher, was scheduled to attend an international conference in California. Customs and Border Protection cited inadmissibility based on derogatory remarks toward U.S. leadership as the reason for his expulsion. Legal experts argue that such denials raise concerns about freedom of speech and potential violations of diplomatic agreements. French officials have expressed dissatisfaction, calling the decision an unjustified restriction on scientific collaboration. Moreau, now back in Paris, said he is seeking legal action and has urged European scientists to reconsider attending US-based conferences.
A coalition of consumer advocates and progressive lawmakers is pushing for an amendment to the Truth in Lending Act that would cap credit card interest rates at 10%. Supporters argue that current rates, often exceeding 20%, create a cycle of long-term debt and financial hardship for millions of Americans. The proposed change seeks to ensure fair lending practices while preventing banks from imposing excessive interest charges. Opponents, including major financial institutions, warn that the cap could lead to stricter lending requirements and reduced access to credit, particularly for low-income borrowers. The average credit card interest rate currently sits at 21.47%, making borrowing increasingly expensive. As bipartisan debates unfold, banking industry lobbyists continue to push back, arguing that market-driven rates are necessary for financial stability.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture has paused millions of dollars in food shipments to food banks nationwide, citing logistical challenges and funding constraints. The move has left many food assistance programs struggling to meet rising demand amid ongoing inflation. Local food banks report shortages in staple items like rice, canned goods, and dairy products. Advocacy groups argue that the delay is unnecessary and could worsen food insecurity, particularly in low-income and rural communities. The USDA has promised to resolve the issue quickly, but no official timeline has been provided for when deliveries will resume. With over 38 million Americans relying on food assistance programs, the suspension has sparked criticism from both lawmakers and hunger relief organizations.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. You can also follow us on our other socials, links in the description box below. Thank you again.